Hey guys, Fallen Messiah here, and I'm here to present you my final build from the now expired PTR of Season 10 Diablo 4. And let's just say that I saved the best for last. That's right, Cataclysm Druid. My favorite build in the entire game is back. But first, I want to provide some backstory, as this build is more important to me than you might think. If you don't care about any of that and just want to jump straight into the action, that's fine, just use the timestamps below the video. But if you wish to learn more about me and this channel, maybe you'll find it interesting. I'm Fallen Messiah. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If not, welcome back. I do gaming content with special focus on Diablo. While this channel was technically created in 2021, I've only really started making videos roughly around 9 months ago. Some of you probably already know how this story goes. You have this idea of wanting to do something for the longest time, but then you start making excuses for yourself not to do it. What if I fail? What if I waste time? What if it sucks? Blah blah blah. And so this channel mostly just sat there for a couple of years until around 9 months ago when I finally said, fuck it, I'm gonna give it a go and do my best, and whatever happens, happens. Diablo has always been my favorite franchise, and I was having a blast playing Diablo 4, so why not share a bit of my knowledge with others? Anyway, that's how I started, though of course starting from scratch is never easy, but I continued to grow step by step and improve along the way. One of the first standout videos on this channel was also my very first build guide, which was, you guessed it, Cataclysm Druid, a build made during Season 7 PTR. I didn't have huge expectations, I just made my first build and I hoped people would like it. And it exploded! At that time I had very few subs, and the video was quickly getting thousands of views. People really enjoyed it, and I was so happy that others found it helpful. It was the first time that I really believed that one day I could make my dream of getting this channel monetized into a reality. It was a huge wind on my sails, and it pushed me to continue making more. In the meantime, Cataclysm Druid went from dominating a couple of seasons into getting severely nerfed. First, they fixed snapshotting, which I agreed with at the time because it was a very annoying mechanic. I was hard at work to get around that and was probably the first person to make a guide that focused on using Provocation passive to get around the nerf and allow Cataclysm to continue to overpower. And you guys loved it. It amassed not just thousands of views, but it currently stands at 20,000 views. That's absolutely insane for a small channel of my size. So I wanted to share all of this to say that due to all of this, Cataclysm Druid is not just another build for me. It's my favorite build because it's so fun and visually stunning, but it also has a sentimental value to me as well, because it kind of kickstarted my YouTube journey. And after Season 8, Season 9 sadly found Cataclysm Druid dead in the water. For reasons I will never understand, it seems that devs really hate this build, because they severely nerfed it in several major ways. Firstly, they cut down the value of Meonic Ring from 100x damage to only 40x. That's less than 50% power right there. Secondly, they made a huge cut on the Runeworker's Conduit aspect that used to scale our damage off of our willpower and changed it into a flat 40% damage bonus. On top of all of that, the global overpower nerf also severely affected the build. All of this resulted in Cataclysm being completely useless currently in Season 9. And in fact, this season was the first one that didn't feature a Cataclysm Druid guide for me. And it's not for the lack of trying either. I actually made Cataclysm Druid this season, and I hated the experience. So here's some recorded footage to show you what I really mean. So here is some footage of me struggling hard on tier 80 on the current live version of the game, Season 9. I made this Cataclysm Druid, and I just want to show you a couple of things. First of all, you can see me here trying to overpower and get my Provocation buff, but it wasn't happening. So in case you don't understand how this works, you have a passive called Provocation that was reworked in this season, which means that for every 10 seconds you spend in bear form, your next skill is going to overpower. The buff counts cumulative seconds, which means, for example, that if you press Maul, Druid is going to spend 4 seconds being into the bear form, and then you're gonna get 4 stacks of Provocation. So that's how it works. You don't have to spend 10 seconds all at once. You can spend, for example, 4 seconds in bear form, gain 4 stacks, and then you can spend some time in human form or werewolf form, and the buff is going to continue where you left off. So for example, you can see here I have 8 stacks of Provocation. The current rotation of Cataclysm is that in order to make the skill Overpower, I have to press Cataclysm once this buff says 10. But that's not all, because I also have Hurricane here. We are rocking the Storm Shifter aspect, which gives us +5 stacks on our storm skills as long as the Hurricane is active. But here's the kicker. Provocation is going to activate any skill that deals damage. This means that if you cast Hurricane once this counts 10, then the Hurricane is going to consume the Provocation passive and your Cataclysm doesn't benefit from it. So there's a very specific rotation in the way this is played, which means that first you actually have to press Hurricane when your stacks are at around 9, and then when you're at 10, you press Cataclysm. And you have to do this for every single cast of the spell, because it no longer refreshes the duration of the buffs they received, like Overpower, so you have to make sure you mind this rotation for every single cast. If this seems complicated and unfun, you're not the only one. So as you can see, if I am doing this correctly and I am overpowering with my Cataclysm, I am going to clear this pit 80, but it's just so unfun. Like, look, right now, I'm not pressing Cataclysm because I don't even know how many stacks of Provocation I have. It's the most important buff I have to mind, but the skill bar, it's not even on it. The buff bar is so full that I have no idea how many stacks I have, and it's super important to me because if I don't know, then I don't know if my next cast is going to be overpowering or not. The whole thing is so ridiculous. See, at 10 stacks, I cast Cataclysm and now it overpowers. Not only do we always have to be mindful of this rotation, not only do we always have to make sure that we cast Cataclysm when we have 10 stacks of Provocation, not only do we want to make sure we have Hurricane active before we cast Provocation so that it doesn't get consumed by Hurricane, but also sometimes this buff, the most important buff that makes the entire skill work, is completely buried. Look at me dying here. Is often completely buried in the buff counter, so you cannot even see it. And I love actually that I died here because I can show you how frustrating this entire experience with Cataclysm Druid has been for me in Season 9. I really tried to make it work, but it's just so unfun playing like this. Not only is playing the build like this super unfun, it also doesn't have any power behind it. And yeah, I guess I could have cleared PTR 80 if I really wanted to, but mining these buffs for every single cast of Cataclysm. So I said, fuck that. Thankfully, the build that you're about to see in this video is completely different, and I did away with all of this. By the way, if you actually still wish to use Provocation on this build, you absolutely can. Just position yourself on the planner, you're gonna have a drop down menu, and I actually have a Provocation version ready to go as well. So when you select this, you will see that a couple of things are different. First of all, we're gonna have Banished Lord's Talisman for more overpowered damage on the item section. Skill tree is also, of course, going to look a little bit different with more points to Provocation and Ursine Strength key passive. And of course, we are going to use Dominate Glyph as well. So this is another version of the build that you can use if you want to. If you really aim to push into the high tiers of the pit and you still wish to overpower and you don't actually mind playing around the Provocation passive counters, this might be the build for you. And this build can actually even get you to pit tiers 100+ if everything else is fully optimized. So as you can see, it's not that I didn't give it an honest effort, but Season 9 Cataclysm was an incredibly frustrating experience and just not fun to play. So I went back to the drawing board. Thankfully, Season 10 has a very strong theme. Seasonal perks, in combination with new Chaos Uniques, allow us access to sources of damage that were previously not accessible to us. So the very first thing I did was to throw all the things that made the build unfun straight to the trash. No more Provocation buff counters, no more buff rotation, no more overpower. The whole idea is to streamline everything as much as I could and to make Cataclysm fun again, without sacrificing its power. The end result? Well, you've seen the intro. It's the Cataclysm Druid you know and love. You press one button while hordes of monsters melt at your feet. And you can also push into P tiers 90+. Is this the strongest druid build in Season 10? Not even close. Grizzly Rage builds are still better both in damage and survivability. But in terms of speed and area of effect, Cataclysm is back on the top, baby. So, if all of this seems fun to you, then sit back, relax as I take you through everything you need to know. As always, skills, items, Paragon, gameplay, and more. With of course, a written planner available as well down below. And by the way, these videos take a long time to make, so if you appreciate my effort, drop a like to the video and sub to the channel if you haven't already, as it really helps me out a ton. Anyway, let's get straight into the guide now. Now this is still the Cataclysm Druid you know and love, but simply better. I have removed all the fluff, I have removed all the counters and pre-buffs to make the gameplay as simple and as fluid as I can possibly make it. In other words, to make it actually fun again. On Torment 4, all you have to do, as you've seen in the gameplay footage, you press Cataclysm, you run around, and things just die. That's it. Now, on higher levels of the pit and on higher challenges, we're also taking advantage of Quick Shift and also Ring of Starless Skies, but more on that later. Let's start with the skill tree first. So we're going to use Claw and Enhanced Claw. So as Claw is a werewolf skill, it's going to help proc Quick Shift, and we can basically just use Claw and Polarize in quick succession a couple of times, and then we're already at 6 stacks, which is gonna enable a ton of damage for us in higher levels of the pit. We also need a Spirit Spender for Ring of Starless Skies. We're gonna go with Polarize because that is a Berber skill, so it's going to help with our quick shift stacks. Polarize, Enhanced, and Primal. And then we're gonna pick 3 points into Iron Fur because we gain more damage reduction while in Werber form and for 3 seconds after. So we should have a permanent uptime on this. It's a really nice passive for more damage reduction. 1 point from Bulwark, Enhanced, and Preserving. This is our source of Unstoppable, Fortify, and also Barrier. So just a really nice thing to have. We're gonna also have Cyclone Armor, Enhanced, and Preserving. So Cyclone Armor is going to passively increase our non-physical damage reduction, but also the active component pulls in monsters towards us, as we're no longer using Irida's Will. This is going to be our main source of pull. And we're also using Blood Howl with Enhanced and Innate. Blood Howl is going to be available to us all the time because the kills actually reduce the cooldown. It's kind of like an extra health potion for us. It also gives us increased damage as well. And all of these things, all these skills are also defensive skills, which means that we benefit from backlash. We deal more damage whenever we cast these skills, and we're gonna be casting them off cooldown all the time. Then make sure that we gain their bonuses and the backlash bonus as well. We're gonna put 1 point into Ancestral Fortitude and 3 points into Vigilance just for more extra damage reduction. 3 points Feral Aptitude, 3 points Nature's Reach. We're gonna put 3 points Charged Atmosphere because this increases our Lightning Bolt's damage, and our Lightning Bolt damage equals Cataclysm damage thanks to our Mjolnir Ring. 3 points Endless Tempest. We want to make sure our Cataclysm lasts for as long as it can. 1 point into Neurotoxin just so that we can put 3 points into Envenom. Envenom is the best passive in the game, probably just a huge multiplier on our crit strike damage, so obviously we're gonna put all points here as well. 3 points Defiance, Natural Disaster, and Resonance. These are all nice multipliers for us. 5 points into Cataclysm, obviously. We're going to put 1 into Prime and 1 into Supreme as well. It's going to make sure our enemies are vulnerable all the time. 3 points into Quick Shift. This is a huge source of damage multiplication, so we have up to 16 ranks. This is almost 100% extra damage when we have 6 stacks, which is a massive bonus to our damage. 3 points into Heightened Senses. This just gives us more damage reduction and movement speed, makes the build even more fluid, which is pretty nice. We're going to put 3 points into Defensive Posture for even more damage reduction while fortified. 2 points into Nature's Resolve so that we can get more fortified when we are hit. And of course, key passive is going to be Perfect Storm. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I removed all the fluff from this build. This is a no overpower build. We are no longer relying on Provocation passive. We're no longer relying on keeping any kind of uptime such as Hurricane, such as Provocation. We don't care about the counters. This whole idea of this build is just plug and play. Minimum fluff and maximum damage. To that extent, I have removed sources of overpower. You still can play with Provocation. You can still play with this, but I don't recommend it. If you're going to push into 95 plus, you can with this, but for anything else in the game, this setup is going to enable you to speed farm through the content without any issue, and you can still push into the PTR's 90 as well. So to that effect, we're going to use Perfect Storm. This is just a great passive for us. If you really wish to play with Provocation, you're going to switch to Earth Sign Strength, but because this is a no overpower build, we are not actually using that. So that's going to be the skill setup. Nice and easy. Alright guys, it's item o'clock. So thanks to the Chaos Armor mechanic, we can finally stop being slaves to unique Druid helms, mainly Vasilis and Tempest Roar. Now we can actually take full advantage of Air of Perdition. This is just a huge multiplier for us, 60% extra damage, no questions asked, and also this allows us to easily cap out our crit strike chance, so masterwork it until you get it done. Other stats, not really relevant for us, but movement speed is also a nice addition. By the way, I will have a non-mythic version when Season 10 actually launches, but I don't really focus too much on that during the PTR. On the PTR, I'm trying to see what's the maximum that an average player can squeeze out of these builds. As you can see, I'm also only rocking Paragon 200, so I'm not going to put a build that's Paragon 300 and then suddenly I'm like Pit 90 plus or something. That doesn't make sense to me. My aim is for you as like quote-unquote average player with a decent amount of time invested. What is your pinnacle? What can you reach with this build? That's what I aim to show most people. So with that extent, I'm not going to focus on non-mythics on these PTR builds, but I will have them ready for Season 10 when it actually launches. So just something to keep in mind. Anyway, Shroud of Falstaff, the best item in the game. If this is not your first time on my channel, then you know I already talked about this item plenty of times. There's also a video of mine where I explain this item in great detail, so if that's something you're interested in, I'm sure you can easily find it on my channel as well. Anyway, +1 to all passives is insane. Huge damage, utility, and defense, and also all stats is an amazing affix because it enables all the rare Paragon nodes on Paragon board as well. For masterworking, try to hit all stats 3 times if you can. If one stat lands on max life, that's fine. Other 2 affixes are useless, try to avoid them when masterworking. For the gloves, we are putting Mjolnir Ring here. Chaos unique effects roll higher than on ordinary uniques, so if we left this as ring only, this would roll up to 40%, but now it rolls 8% higher, which is a nice little boost in damage. So willpower, crit chance, and Endless Tempest are all good affixes. Try to hit Endless Tempest at least once or twice with Masterworking. We want to make sure that Cataclysm lasts for as long as it can, just to make it a little bit more fluid, even though we do have ways of reducing the cooldown even further, more on that later. And of course you want to masterwork willpower as well. This item says, while Cataclysm is active, we gain unlimited spirit and deal up to 50% increased damage, and also Cataclysm receives our Lightning Bolt benefits. This is the reason behind the Charge Atmosphere passive, and it's also why we put Electrocution Glyph on our Paragon node, which I'm gonna show you later as well. This ring used to be amazing, now not so, but it's still the best item for this build, so we're gonna still use it, but in a different item slot. We can also use Tempest Roar. As I mentioned earlier, we can finally put Tempest Roar somewhere else, and we're gonna put it in pants this time. We're gonna roll willpower for as high as we can, so ideally you wanna triple hit that. With Masterworking, I only managed to hit it twice. And also, what this does for us, it turns our Storm skills into also being Werewolf skills, which enables a ton of additional multipliers for us. And lastly, for the Chaos Uniques, we have Hunter's Zenith. Now, originally, I intended this build to be made with Crown Evolution. Unfortunately, to my extreme disappointment, Crown Evolution does not work with this build. Because it says here, every time we use a skill with a resource cost, we gain 18% increased damage up to 5 times. So this would multiply our damage by up to 100% almost if it worked. The problem is that Mjolnir Ring gives us unlimited resource. So Crown Evolution doesn't actually recognize that our spirit spenders are in fact spirit spenders. Ring of Starless Skies still does work. For some reason, Crown does not. If Crown worked, we would easily push into 95 pit plus, even without Provocation. Unfortunately, it doesn't. So this is the next best thing that I managed to find for us as a replacement. Hunter's Zenith. The only thing we care about here is the quick shift. This is a great source of extra quick shift ranks. Triple crit that if you can. So this is definitely not ideal what I have here right now. For the weapon, we want polearm for the vulnerable damage implicit, but any weapon with 0.9 attacks per second will do because it has the biggest base damage. For stats, willpower, max life, crit strike damage. For tempers, crit strike damage, and of course, chance for Cataclysm to deal double damage. This is a straight up multiplier. We want to make sure we triple crit that if we can. I didn't manage to do it, but ideally you want this to be 100% of the time. For aspect, we're going with Epigenic Furor. This is just the best aspect for any ultimate build out there. When we cast an ultimate skill, we gain 20% extra damage all the way up to 200 and then it resets. Which means that as we progress further into the pit, we only get stronger and stronger. So don't worry if at the beginning your damage is a little bit maybe weaker. It gets multiplied once you get a couple of these stacks going. For the amulet, we're going with willpower, envenom, and quick shift. Ideally, you want to triple crit envenom. I didn't. This is another extra optimization that you can do that I didn't have. I just didn't have the time enough to do it. The PTR is going to end very quickly at the recording of this video, but that's the ideal scenario. Quick shift and envenom are amazing passives, great multipliers for our damage. For tempers, we're going with Cataclysm cooldown reduction. The second temper, if you don't have 100% crit chance, you can do what I did. I ran out of tempers. Ideally, I would love to roll something else here, maybe extra crit damage, because I already have 100% crit chance. Ideal version is going to be in the planner. For the aspect, we're of course going with the Changeling's Depth. We deal up to 98% increased damage while hitting a poison enemy as a werebear or a crowd control as a werewolf. Level 5 bonus on Cataclysm slows surrounding enemies for 70%. That's our source of crowd control, and because that's also a werewolf skill thanks to the Tempest Roar, we benefit from this bonus. Ring number 1 is going to be Runeworker's Conduit. Runeworkers used to be amazing. This bonus to Lightning Bolt used to scale off with willpower. Now they completely gutted that for whatever reason, but oh well. For the stat, we're going with willpower, crit damage, and the third stat is going to be crit strike chance if it's not maxed out. If it is, go for life. For tempers, we're going with Cataclysm cooldown reduction and crit strike damage. For masterworking, try to triple crit willpower if you can, but if one crit lands on Cataclysm cooldown reduction, that's fine. And of course, the aspect is Runeworker's Conduit. And the second ring is going to be Ring of Starless Skies. Previous builds didn't run this because we were using Iridas and Mjolnir Ring, but now we moved Mjolnir to a different item slot, and also I don't think Irida's Will is too useful for us any longer. It doesn't actually provide more damage, and already have another source of pull thanks to Cyclone Armor. So we want to make sure that we always have effect of Ring of Starless Skies if we're pit pushing, but if you're not, then it doesn't really matter. But this is why we have Pulverize. It's a spirit spender, but even when we have Cataclysm, even when we have maximum resource, the game still recognizes that Pulverize is a spirit spender, and it does give you ranks to Starless Skies. So that's just up to 50% extra damage multiplier, no questions asked. For the stats, we want to make sure that we cap out on crit strike chance. If you already did, then some extra attack speed is not a bad thing to have, because it's helpful when you're walking into your target initially and trying to proc quick shift for the first time. For the rune words, first one is going to be Igni Zek. So you're probably already familiar with this setup. Igni is kind of accumulating this offering, and then when we cast a non-basic skill, it expends it. It's just going to passively decrease the cooldown of our Cataclysm even further during combat. And the second one is going to be Seer Vex, where we cast 5 skills, which is going to happen fairly often. We gain more skill ranks, and more skill ranks means more damage and also more cooldown reduction. To be quite honest, these rune words are fairly replaceable. If you feel you want to put an Ohm in there for more damage, especially on this first slot, you can. So this is up to you, but this is going to be in the planner. For the other slots, we're going with Willpower Gems. For the jewelry, this is where you sort out anything you're missing. So I have 1 Armor Gem, 1 Fire Res Gem, and 1 Cold Res Gem, so that when I see my stats, I can see that I'm actually fully res capped, and you will need it because we are playing with only 50% life. And the reason why we're playing with 50% life is because of our Chaos perks. This is another huge source of damage multiplication that is ordinarily unavailable to us, but now we're taking full advantage of that. So first of all, we're playing with a unique perk called A Beast Cornered. For every percent life we're missing, we gain 20% increased damage and more damage reduction. we are pairing this off well with Mard Guard. Mard Guard caps our life at 50%. So you can already see that straight off the gate, this means that we have 100% extra damage that we ordinarily wouldn't have, which is really powerful for us. We also gain more max resistances, more armor, and more barrier and fortify, so this is just an amazing combination. You might think that we are frail, we're actually not. I'm gonna show you the gameplay a bit later. This build is actually quite tanky even with 50% life, because we have permanent fortify, tons of barrier, we are armor capped, and we are res capped at all times. Second one is going to be Wild Transformation. This is a very interesting perk. So basically, whenever we shapeshift into a new form, we use a free skill, and we also get additional bonus for 5 seconds. So Werewolf uses Blood Howl and grants more crit strike damage, Bear uses the Building Roar and grants more damage reduction, and Human uses Cyclone Armor and grants more attack speed. So just overall in combat, as we're switching around, we have skills of all 3 forms. This is going to apply passive bonuses for us, which is really nice. And finally, for the third one, we're going with Accelerating Chaos. Accelerating Chaos just helps to reduce our cooldowns even further a little bit. We're gonna have 2 Eagle Boons, Avian Wrath, more crit strike damage, and Iron Feather for more life. We don't really care too much about crit strike chance because we already maxed it, but if you haven't, then pick it here. And also, attack speed is not really super useful to us anyway. Third one is going to be Calamity for more Cataclysm uptime, and fourth one is Overload. Overload allows us to tap into these poison multipliers such as Envenom, because it allows our storm skills to apply poison damage. For consumables, of course, you want to make sure you sort out your resistances and your armor cap. So for instance, I went with Fortitude, Blessed Guide for more willpower, Song of the Mountain for more armor, and Soothing Spices. And now you can see I'm at armor cap, and I'm at res cap as well. So make sure you do the same. It is time for the Paragon board. Now again, as I mentioned earlier, this is a no overpower build. So this Paragon board is also gonna have that in mind. You will not see the dominate glyph here. We're starting off with Electrocution. As already explained, lightning bolt damage equals Cataclysm damage thanks to the Muonic Ring, so we're gonna take full advantage of that. The planner is going to have the minimum requirements to unlock the build, which is usually around 190 Paragon points, but for any extra Paragon points that you can spare elsewhere, you should grab these willpower nodes in range of this glyph, because it increases your damage significantly. For example, this is almost 1000 additive damage to Cataclysm. Even though it's additive, it still adds up a lot. Board number 2 is going to be Thunderstruck. So this is just a straight up 60% damage multiplier. And don't worry, this Paragon board also procs itself. So you don't actually need Irida's Will or any other bonuses to close or distant on your gear. You can just follow my guide and you will unlock it yourself by following along. For example, we're gonna grab Deluge, we're gonna grab these rare nodes around, and then we go to the glyph, we're gonna put in Shapeshifter. Shapeshifter is going to, of course, give us more damage, but not only that, it also grants bonuses to all rare nodes within range, which means it also grants bonuses to Concentrated, and increases the damage to close enemies significantly. This allows us to fully cap out Thunderstruck without any help of our gear whatsoever. Third board is going to be Ancestral Guidance. After spending 75 spirits, we deal 40% increased damage. And before you ask, yes, this does work with the Muonic Ring bonus. Not only that, but also our ultimate skills deal 1% increased damage per spirit when cast. So we're pretty much always in full spirit when we cast Cataclysm. To be honest, I'm not sure if this second part does what it's supposed to do, because I'm kind of missing all this damage. But supposedly, if we cast Cataclysm at full spirit, we should gain up to 100% extra damage just by this secondary effect alone. Either way, we're gonna make sure that we make use of it. Glyph number 3 is going to be Spirit, just a huge multiplication on our crit strike damage, and if you max everything out and you have extra points to spare, they should be invested in dexterity nodes around because they increase crit strike damage significantly. Board number 4 is going to be Lust for Carnage, crit strikes with werewolf skills, which Cataclysm is thanks to the Tempest Roar, restore spirit and deal 50% extra damage. Fourth glyph is going to be Keeper for more non-physical damage, and also Keeper has the same effect as the previous glyph, where it increases the bonus to all rare nodes, so we want to make sure we take advantage of that by picking up Ripper and Feral for more damage. And final board is going to be Heightened Malice. While a poisoned enemy is nearby, we deal 35% increased damage and also an additional 5% up to 4, which is additional 20% extra multiplier on top of this 35 that we have here already. This is a great node, increases our damage significantly. And the final glyph is going to be Headhunter. We deal more damage to elite, and this glyph also increases normal willpower nodes around it. So at level 100 it will double it. This is 5 willpower, but now we have 10. So if you're like Paragon level 270, 280, you already capped everything there is to cap. Feel free to put more points here, just for a little bit extra additive bonus. And also this final glyph has some pretty interesting nodes for even more damage reduction. I recommend taking Natureborn, because Natureborn gives us alone 18% damage reduction from poison enemies, and our enemies are always poisoned. We also have this one, and this one in range for up to 27% damage reduction just for these couple of nodes, which is really not bad if you ask me. And finally guys, we are on the final portion of the video, which is the gameplay portion. I have worked my ass off to present you with a build that is easy and fun to play, but also very powerful. So I already showed you earlier an example of what I had to do in the current live season to squeeze out the fraction of the damage that we're dealing on this build. I had to juggle the provocation counter. I had to make sure that I always have Hurricane on before casting Cataclysm, but I also wanted to make sure that we have Hurricane on before activating the provocation bonus. It's a mess. I did away with all of that. I stripped it to the bare bones, but don't get it twisted, this is still a very powerful build. So if you're going to go in Torment 4, what do? You activate Cataclysm, and then things die. That's it. What's great is that there is no penalty for Cataclysm running out. Your Cataclysm ran out? That's okay. Just cast it again. No other buffs to maintain. This is really all there is to it. That's it. Now, if we want to push higher tiers of content, layer bosses, the pit, what have you, then we have a couple of other things at our disposal as well. So we have here Claw, which is a werewolf skill. We have Pulverize, which is a werewolf skill. So together, they're going to give us quick shift stacks very quickly. At 6 stacks, we deal almost 100% extra damage, as I showed you in the skill portion of the video, which is really powerful. And so as long as we stay in either werewolf or werewolf form, we have this stack on permanent. Once we get 6 stacks, we activate Cataclysm. And in combat, in higher levels of content, we also want to make sure we keep spamming Pulverize, because we want to make sure we always have 5 stacks of Starless Skies at all times, and then we can just simply reapply Cataclysm when it's off cooldown. And then of course, we also want to make sure we use our defensive skills to proc Backlash and to gain more bonuses, and also we're gonna use Cyclone Armor to pull in enemies as well. And that's really all there is to it. Now I'm just going to show you a couple extra tips and tricks by showing you my Natty Pit clear, and to show you how this whole thing works in action. Alright, and just a quick rundown of the Pit Natty clear that I have. As you can see, it's a pretty slow start. It takes a while for the Apogeic Furor to really kick in, but over time you will see the clear speed is actually a lot better. There is not a whole lot of moving parts. As I explained earlier, I really tried to make this as seamless as possible. So we're just trying to get 6 quick shift stacks before activating Cataclysm, and then we're casting Pulverize all of the time to keep 5 stacks of Ring of Starless Skies at all times. And then we're just casting other things on demand. Every time we have a defensive skill active, we're gonna activate it. We also have Cyclone Armor for pull, and that's really it. You want to make sure you cast Cataclysm when you're at full spirit to gain the most benefit from your Ancestral Guidance. However, if you follow the build properly, you will see that your duration is longer than your cooldown, so you can actually always pop it before it expires. And because our Mjolnir Ring gives us unlimited resource, it's never actually a problem, so you only really have to mine that for the very first cast. And that's pretty much it. So I'm just going around, I'm using Pulverize, I'm trying to make sure I'm always staying in the animal form, because we're gonna lose all stacks of Quick Shift if we stay in human form for more than 3 seconds. Look how much I'm grouping them together with Cyclone Armor, and then I'm just destroying them with Cataclysm. That's pretty much the gist of it. And by the way, this build is not super optimized. Like, for example, I didn't even use a right spirit boon. I used the wrong one. I didn't use the gift of the stag, which gives me 30 spirit, which is 30% extra damage because of the ancestral guidance. And I also did a masterwork quick shift on our hunter zenith 3 times, so there's definitely even more room for improvement. But generally speaking, this is kind of the pinnacle of what this build can do. At around pit 90 is where it plateaus. You can take the Provocation version of the build. As I already explained earlier, there's actually in the planner specific to that. If you still wish to keep Provocation as a part of your gameplay loop, you can. You switch the boots to Banished Lord's Talisman, and you do a couple of other tweaks, and you can even push this maybe even to 100 plus category if you really want to. Personally, I think there is no need. I think 90 is a perfectly good tier for this kind of build. Compared to how much it sucks right now in Season 9, this is a huge improvement. So the fact that we can actually do this is amazing. And as I showed you earlier, anything on Torment 4 is just gonna die by clicking Cataclysm one time. So you don't have to even worry about that. Such a shame that Crown Evolution doesn't work with this build, because if it did, we would easily be pushing this past Pit 96, 97, even without Provocation. So that's kind of a shame. And also, by the way, when you have situations like these, when you have one monster that refuses to die, take advantage of the huge AoE that we have, and you lead the monster toward other packs, so that you don't lose time in the pit. If you notice, this monster that had like 30% HP, I didn't take too much damage. I just led him to other packs so that I could take advantage of the huge AoE of Cataclysm. And that's basically the main strategy of pushing high levels of the pit, because the single target damage of Cataclysm is not that great. So if you have these monsters that just refuse to die, like this one for example, it gained Unstoppable and it's just not dying. If that happens, I would ordinarily just lead it to other packs and take advantage of the huge AoE. And that's basically the entire gameplay here, really. Hopefully the Crown Evolution is going to work for Season 10. If it does, I will definitely be updating this build. In fact, I already have a couple of ways in which I feel this can be even better, so stay tuned for that. When Season 10 actually drops, I might have even more improvements. But that's basically the entire gameplay. And there you have it, guys. That has been my full guide for the upcoming Season 10 Cataclysm Druid. It's been a bit of a longer video, but I hope you still enjoyed it. I had tons of fun assembling this Cataclysm Druid, and all I can say is Cataclysm is back, baby. Finally. Season 9, you've seen how horrible the gameplay was. Thankfully, Season 10 is going to be so much better. On Torment 4, we just click Cataclysm and enemies melt. You've seen how it performed in the Goblin Room on Infernal Hordes. It's so fun to play. Now, granted, it's not the best pit pusher out there. I struggled to clear pit 90, so it's definitely not the strongest build in that regard, but it's going to melt everything on Torment 4, and you can also do speed pits 80 plus as well. Of course, layer bosses as well are going to melt pretty much instantly, so no worries about that. As always, the complete planner is going to be down below for your reference, and if you have any questions, feel free to shoot at me in the comment section and I will make sure to reply as soon as I can. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm very excited to start playing Cataclysm again in Season 10. And of course, if you appreciate these efforts, drop a like to the video and a sub to the channel, because it really helps me out tremendously and I really appreciate it. Anyway, that's gonna be it for me, guys. Thank you for watching. I'm Fallen Messiah, and I'll be seeing you in the next one.